Hey guys, welcome back to the Revive Stronger podcast. I'm your host, as always, Steve Hall, and today I have Layne Norton back on the show. It's been a little while since I've had Layne on, and he's a busy guy, so it was fantastic to have some of his time and delve into some of the things that he's been up to personally. So with his recent powerlifting meets, and he's also preparing for one. That will have probably happened by the time this is live, but still interesting nonetheless to hear about his training and the approach there. And then digging into kind of what he's up to from a business perspective. How much time does he spend coaching now versus other aspects of the business? How has he grown to such a state and position and been so consistent over the years? Really interesting stuff. And then just getting in an idea of what his opinion is right now on best practice for hypertrophy, what were his thoughts on the recent meta-regression that came out, and some interesting thoughts and perspectives as always from Layne. And it was a fun chat. I always have fun talking with Layne. As a reminder, guys, if you want to see more podcasts, if you want to see bigger and better guests, although we have fantastic guests already, do make sure to give us a thumbs up, give us a nice review over on Spotify or the like, share it with your friends, make sure to subscribe. All your support is really valued, and we thank you for that. Now, before we dig into the show, let's get a word from today's sponsor. Guys, we know how important first impressions are. If you aren't confident in yourself, you're not going to be perceived in the best way either. And you're not going to be confident if your skin isn't up to par, if it's not looking great. A lot of skincare products are catered towards women, but with Caldera Lab, they're specifically made for us guys, and they can just help elevate your skin and through that, your confidence. For the last number of months, I've been using their product line through the regimen, and this is a really easy thing to just incorporate into your routine and through that, elevate your skin, your confidence, and hopefully your well-being. And you can also age more gracefully, at least that's the way I feel. So that is where you have in the morning, you're using the clean slate. This freshens up your face, it's great for all skin types. After that, you come on to the base layer. So this again just hydrates your skin, makes it not look dull for the rest of the day. And then as you're going through the day and then through into the evening, you can wash your face again using the clean slate and then hydrate yourself through the good. And this is great for helping remove the fine lines, the wrinkles, those sort of things. It has tons of antioxidants in there as well, which has to be a good thing for your skin. And then finally, you're finishing off with the icon, and this is helping those fine lines through the eyes, you know, the kind of areas where some of the wrinkles first develop and appear. And these are all clinically proven, and over 90% of guys who have been using this for an extended period of time have noticed the benefits of doing so. So if you're looking for a skincare product that's catered to men specifically, look no further than Caldera Lab. They are clinically tested and they use fantastic ingredients, and we have an exclusive offer for you today. You can head to calderalab.com, use our discount code REVIVE, and you'll get a nice 20% off your order. Now, thank you for listening to that. Without further ado, let's get into the great chat with Layne Norton. Hi guys, welcome back to the Revive Stronger podcast. I'm your host, as always, Steve Hall, and today I have Layne Norton back on the show. It's been 2 years now, Layne. 227 was the episode. We're almost up to episode 400 now, so wow. Time flies, right?
Yeah. I know where it goes, but it certainly doesn't feel like it goes, you know. And what do they say? The days are long and the years are short.
Well, you've been busy. Like I keep up with the stuff that you're doing, Layne, and there's always something. You're super consistent in every area of your life, actually, and it's inspirational. I think I can speak for like a lot of competitors, but also people in the fitness industry. It's awesome to see someone like yourself just over the years just continue to be like seemingly full throttle. I don't know if that's fair to say, but
it certainly feels that way. But, you know, I'll say like, I'm not the smartest, I'm not the strongest, but I'll out-volume the hell out of you. You know what I mean?
Just that relentless. Actually, I can't think, what was it? It was Outwork, right? You used to have the clothing line Outwork or something along those lines.
Yeah, I had a clothing line called Outwork, but now we have the supplement line called Outwork. Turned out that, you know, I'm not a fashionista. People aren't really into buying clothing from me, so missed on that, but the supplement line's doing really well.
I loved the mentality because I had an Outwork top. I don't think it's long gone now because cool. I like grew out of it, whatever. But yeah, it was one of my favorite ones at the time because, you know, when it's just a slogan and there's someone behind it that just inspires you, you put it on, you're like, yeah, it's going to be a good session. It was kind of one of those. So maybe I'm talking you slowly back into doing it again.
Well, we do have apparel through Outwork Nutrition. So we do have that now.
There you go. And so the listeners know as well, I always like to get an update just on where people are at. You're currently, I think, a month out from the North Americans like powerlifting meet. Is that right?
2 weeks.
2 weeks now.
Yeah, 2 weeks.
How's that going?
That just my training for this has not been as good as it's been for North Americans, but I've also been my volume's the highest it's been in many years. And so it's kind of hard to figure out if it's just I'm performing worse or I'm just dealing with more fatigue and the gym sessions aren't as productive. So it's meats are like a box of chocolates. You never really know what you're going to get until you open the box and see what's there on meat day. So, I've been able to be consistent with my training. So there's really no reason that I shouldn't have a good meet. I have been dealing with some pretty stressful personal things, but those can impact your recovery, but I have been sleeping pretty well. So, most of the metrics say should do pretty well, but like I said, we'll see what's there, and I'm always ready to do battle no matter what.
Do you have any particular goals for this particular meet, or is it just one of those where it's you do your best? Yeah.
Win. Yeah. So this kind of came up organically because after I won nationals, the guy, Michael Garazzo, who I beat for the M1 93 title, I had to go down to the last deadlift to beat him, it's always so much fun. He's not doing Worlds because Worlds this year is in Mongolia. It's just kind of a real pain in the butt for everybody to get there. And then the Gabriel Garcia, who I beat at Worlds last year, who's the 3-time world champion, he's not doing it either because of the travel. And so I kind of was like, maybe some good competitors will show up in Worlds, but here are like two of the top guys in my division, and they're going to be a 2-hour flight away from me at a world level meet. So kind of felt like, if it came down to, I'm not sure if I'm going to do Worlds now, just because of everything I got going on, but I'd rather go and feel like I beat the top guys or compete with the top guys than go to a world competition that doesn't really feel like a world competition,
I think that's true. Speaking as a true competitor, like you're not looking for the easy way out. You're looking almost for the hardest route because what matters is what not like what a title says or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, 2-time world champ sounds good, but at the end of the day, I'm not making a living off competing in powerlifting. I do it because I want to push myself. So I think this is the better way to push myself.
For sure. Yeah, I think I saw there was that kind of deadlift off, if I can call it that. I think I saw a video clip of you being filmed, and I was like, I don't think I've obviously seen you lift before, but not in a competition like that. And it was just like, oh, that's I could never imagine myself lifting like that. But I think even the other guy, he doesn't have that same temperament. Like everyone has different ways of approaching lifts that allows them to perform at their best. I'm
definitely more over the top, outward excitement, style, but that's how I have fun. And, that's just kind of my personality. Anybody knows me knows I'm super extroverted and loud and talkative. So it makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. And so that's obviously your own training. Are you still coaching now, or do you not coach anyone one-on-one anymore?
I have probably about a handful of clients, like 5 or 6 clients who either I did take on 2 or 3 clients last year, just at select times. I'll open it up. But for the most part, it's just, people who have stayed on for a really long time. And I've never said, hey, you got to drop off. I've just kept them. And, we'll see. I did love my time doing one-on-one coaching, but I just realized that people don't realize this. I did everything myself for a really long time. Until 2013, if you got an email, a message on social media, on anything, that was me, period. All the videos I put up, I did all that. I edit the videos. I was doing one-on-one coaching. I was competing. I mean, it was overwhelming, Fortunately, my ADHD makes it easy for me to switch between tasks, and I have a really good motor. I've had people tell me that I have the most energy, I'm the most energetic person of anybody they've ever been around. So like I had that on my side, but it just got to the point where I'm like, I was realizing I was spending so much time doing things that I wasn't really that good at. And now I've kind of, and I was really limited in how many people I could reach. You know, like I want to make a big positive impact. And so a lot of, I really have accelerated my work on social media in terms of like really putting a lot of focus on that, because I see it as it's a great tool to reach a lot of people. And then interestingly, I kind of created a business the opposite way that you would normally set it up, which is you create the business, the structure, and then through the business and selling your products, you can get somewhat of a personal following. I had a huge personal following of my personal brand, but I had nothing to sell people other than one-on-one coaching. And so now I've got pretty much everything built that I'd ever want to build in terms of, I have the nutrition coaching app, Carbon Diet Coach. I've got our team of coaches, so Team BioLayne. So they do the one-on-one coaching, and these are people that like we kind of handpicked and then we trained in the way we do things. And then the supplement line, I've got the training programs on the website, my research review, and then also have now a Physique Coaching Academy, which is my 8-month mentorship program with Bill Campbell. So I've kind of got everything built that I've wanted to build, and now it's just about, bringing that to people. So now the majority of what I do is podcasts and social media and doing a lot of reading of research just to see what's coming out and keep up on that stuff. And then honestly, quite honestly, spending a lot of time on social media, seeing what people are talking about, because the best way to get a lot of eyeballs is to find a hot topic that people are talking about that is relevant, that I can comment on. And so I've always been good about like when something comes up, and I'll know what's hot because people will be sending it to me, so I can comment quickly on it, and that usually drives a lot of engagement. So I do, people knock social media a lot, but I do spend a lot of time on it because that's how I'm able to keep my finger on the pulse of everything. And I think that's why I've never paid for followers. I've never had a marketing company, nothing like that. It's always just been me. And still to this day, like if you get a message, like if I respond to a message on social media, that's me. That's not anybody like running my account. I've never had anybody do that.
That's awesome. Yeah, you're coming. Can I say you're close to 1 million? I mean, you are like 832K. I looked today, and that's like an incredible number.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of weird to think about, and like now I definitely have seen, like it used to be like, okay, I go to a gym, I'll get recognized. I go to I go to a fitness event, I'll get recognized. And now it's it's funny because I'm a very like at a fitness event or whatever, like I'll be very outgoing and I'll take time with everybody. I'll make sure like, I try to make sure that everybody like feels like they got a chance to talk to me and take a picture or whatever. But sometimes when I'm out just like hanging out with friends, or I'm out with my kids and I get stopped, I won't be standoffish or anything like that, but it'll catch me off guard. I won't be, flipped on. It'll catch me off guard because I'm not used to, that sort of situation. It's good and bad. I try to focus on the positive stuff of it.
Yeah, no, I can imagine, because I imagine sometimes you just want to be on your own and do your own thing, and then you're like, it kind of catches you off guard, but at the same time, it's kind of like your own creation in many ways. And you've done a really good job. When I think about like you're one of the OGs of evidence-based kind of bodybuilding, as it were, and I think like I'm still wrapped up in that, and I think a lot of people are. You've done a great job of breaching into like the wider kind of ranks, as it were, the more kind of gen pop, if we want to call it that. Is there anything you think you've done in particular that's allowed you to kind of breach that gap? I think part of it is just your personality, which is, I think, almost coaching for you. You were lost on that. Like that wasn't your like the thing for you, because you have such a great personality and a way of kind of providing information. Being able to kind of display that to the world is important.
Yeah, I think I have an ability to connect with people, and I think that's what made me a good coach for a long period of time. And I think I've figured out what my wheelhouse is, which is like I'm a good communicator, like a good science communicator. I do a relatively, I think, good job of taking complex topics and simplifying to the point where people can understand, but not so much to the point where it loses the nuance of the topic, right? Like I can still keep that. And a big credit to my PhD advisor, Dr. Don Layman. He mentored me a lot in that. And I'll never forget when I was doing my PhD exit seminar, I said, who should I gear this towards? Because like, there's going to be my mom in the audience. There's going to be like, everyday people in the audience, and there's going to be professors. And he looked at me and said, I should learn something from your presentation, and your mom should learn something from the presentation. And I was like, oh, and that's the hardest to write for, because it really is difficult to bridge that gap. And so that's something I felt like I've done well. And so that's where I feel like my wheelhouse is, really trying to function as that bridge between like hardcore science and the average person. And I think one of the best compliments I ever got was from Jeremy Lineker. And this was, I'll never forget this, was the day after IPF Worlds in 2015, which is, I set a world squat record and whatnot. And Jeremy said, I don't know anybody. He's like, it's hard enough to get respected in one discipline by the top people in that discipline. And he's like, you're in 3 different disciplines that you're very well respected, which is, you could pretty much, if you wanted to talk to, a big wig in powerlifting, you can do that. If you want to talk to somebody in bodybuilding, you can do that. And then if you want to talk to somebody in academia, you can do that. And everybody respects you, or most people are going to respect you in those 3 disciplines. But I think it's just it's just a lot of volume of work over the years. I was fortunate enough to find the thing that I was really into when I was really young, and I just stuck with it. I think most people, they say the average career changes like every 5 years. I think people just get bored, Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like people, get passionate about other stuff. But I've always this is my thing, man. I love training. I was always super interested in nutrition. And obviously, like, there's a lot of thirst for that knowledge, and there's a lot of bad education out there. And so I really feel like, I've kind of got a very secure job,
Yeah. Yeah. And I'd even, in addition to those 3, I'd even give you a 4th of like being respected by, I guess, like business men or what have you, like entrepreneurs. Like I would say you can kind of talk to them, because when I think about where like an online coach could go and the steps forward and like what other avenues there are, like you've done everything. Like I can't really think of much more you could have done to maximize what an entrepreneur within like starting with online coaching could have done, which I think is like super commendable.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, entrepreneurship is, I never like was growing up like, man, I want to be an entrepreneur. It just kind of happened like that,
Yeah.
Just kind of happened like that. And, I've certainly, like, I would never, consider myself like a business coach or anything like that. Like I have made so many mistakes. I still, if people knew the behind the scenes, there's been a lot of mistakes I've had to work to, either repair or undo or whatnot. And, mistakes are fine, but, if I'd had that, like a formal business education background, I probably could have avoided a lot of those. But, then I wouldn't have built the following in fitness that I have. So it is what it is. And, I think I tell people, like, even though the mistakes are frustrating, because I think about where I could be, business wise, financially, all that kind of stuff. And I've done really well, but it could have been way different. But I'm also like, well, I kind of had to make those mistakes, and it happened how it happened. And I think I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, and I referred to myself as an optimist. And I think, sometimes she sees me like she sees me like really anxious. She's like, really? You think you're an optimist? I'm like, yeah, I do think I'm an optimist, because I think my life has been pretty kick-ass, Like I've had, I don't know, probably over a dozen like moments in my life that a lot of people would give anything just to have one of those, And so to me, like, when I get to the end of my life, I don't want to get too philosophical, but when I get to the end of my life, what is it other than just looking back on a series of, moments? And the more chance I get to have some of those epic moments, I mean, to me, that's what it's all about. In fact, I'm not to go too off the deep end, but I was talking to Ryan Lapidat, who runs the King of the Lifts podcast. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
I haven't heard of it.
This was when the IPF and USA Powerlifting split, and there was a big, obviously people had to pick whether they're going to stay with USA Powerlifting or go to Powerlifting America. And I love USA Powerlifting. I guess absolutely nothing bad to say about them. I went with Powerlifting America just because I wanted a path to go to world championships. And some people were saying, well, you can win money at these USA powerlifting events. Like you can win, IPF doesn't pay. And Ryan and I were chuckling about it because Ryan was like, Layne, how much money would somebody have to pay you to take the experience from IPF Worlds away from you? Like to not have that experience. I don't know if there's an amount of money you could pay, because I can't buy back something like that. I can't buy back like hitting a world record in front of my friends and family. And for that moment, I was the best in the world at that particular lift for my weight class, like that sort of thing. So I just look at life as like, I want to set myself up to have as many of those kind of moments, and whether it's business or personal or whatever, have as many of those epic moments as I can.
Is it fair to say then, Layne, that like Layne the athlete is a bigger priority to you than like Layne the businessman? Like, are the accolades of making money less important to you than the accolades of potential in like your powerlifting?
So I think once I got to a certain amount of income, it was kind of like gravy for me. I had said to a friend of mine, because I was talking about juggling everything, like kids, entrepreneurship, powerlifting. And I had said, if it came down to it, like this is going to sound very flippant, and I don't want to be flippant because I realize it's a lot of money. But like I've worked really hard and been in the position I'm in, but I was like, hey, if it meant I had to give up powerlifting or make like 50 or 100K less, I'd just make less money, because like I already do well enough. So for me, it's like, I'd rather have some more of those moments, and maybe one day that'll change. But, right now it's kind of like, I tell people like, and actually this is evidence-based for happiness. If you look up the research on happiness, what kind of happiness can money buy you? Like, what way can money make you more happy? It's not through material things. Those are very, very short. That's that quick dopamine hit, you're done. It is by experiences and buying your time back. And that's what money gives you, is the flexibility to buy your time back. So I cut lawns growing up. I painted stuff. I did chores around the house. I don't do my lawn. I don't clean my pool. I don't really do chores around the house. I have a housekeeper. I spend almost virtually any extra money I spend goes back into my businesses or buying my time back so that I can spend that with kids, friends, that sort of stuff, and I've found that, at least for me, it just gives me the flexibility, and then experiences like flying to places, doing stuff. Like I was just over in Greece for a seminar, and then I went to some of the Greek islands, and like that was unbelievable experience. It's not cheap, but it's like, I'll remember that for the rest of my life. If I buy a nice watch, okay, cool, but like that, I don't know. That's the kind of stuff just doesn't matter to me. So, for me, I look at like the athlete side of things in the same vein. I get to buy back, time to spend doing something that I'm truly passionate about.
That makes a lot of sense. And it doesn't surprise me to know that like the athlete in you is like, I don't know, it's the thing that started everything, right? Kind of paying homage to that too as well. You don't have a home gym, do you, Layne? You train?
Well, yes and no. So I did have a home gym. I'm in the process of selling my current home, and we had it under contract, and then the sale fell through, and I'd already sold my home gym. So I did. Now I don't. But on the plus side, most of my equipment I sold to actually MI40 here in Tampa, which is owned by Ben Pekulski and his wife. And I sold it to them. So I still use it. So like my belt squat is great. Like I just, I basically got paid to go use my same equipment. But, I did like having a home gym. I like to train in a gym just because it's like it's just a nice atmosphere. You know, some people are like, again, I'm an extrovert, I'm outgoing. I don't necessarily want to talk to anybody when I train,
Yeah.
but it's just nice to be in an environment where people are training hard. But it was nice to have that, like, you know, if I had to train on a weekend, for example, where I had the kids and I didn't have a sitter or anything like that, you know, I just go out in the gym and, you know, kids can watch TV for an hour or something like that. I can pop out my workout real quick and get back in. But, you know, just got to reframe, refocus. And I would buy back my equipment, but obviously still trying to sell the house. Don't know what I'm going to be in the future. So, you know, I'm just kind of hitting pause on that until, you know, I get the house sold and move on to the next phase.
Yeah, no, it makes tons of sense. I totally see, like, when after the pandemic and everything, and I was buying equipment to train, like in my flat, I was like, oh, I definitely want a home gym eventually. And then I was like, man, I want so many pieces of equipment. It's just for, especially as a bodybuilder, when you're trying to, I don't know, have as much variety as possible almost at certain times and have that equipment available. It's just like, it's not going to work. And like you said, if it's a good gym environment, there's something priceless about that you can't emulate from home. But I can definitely see that, like, the time thing is a commitment there, and you don't have to wait around for any kit or anything when you're at home.
Right. No, and that's the thing I'm always weighing. Like, if it's, you know, if it's something where I've got to get in and get it out quick, obviously you can't be at home. But also found, because I work from home, when I would train at home, it was just hard to flip the switch. You know, like I've really become big on the fact that you probably should have rituals. You know, like my best training has always been when I'm at home, having the same, you know, ritual of, like, even like right down to where I'm eating my pre-workout meal, what I'm doing, you know, the drive, all that kind of stuff. And I think that humans, when you throw in, you know, other things, we don't realize it, but it's like micro stresses. You know what I mean? Like, there's like micro stresses, I guess is the way I'd put it. And I have no evidence to back this up. I'm just spitballing. But I do think there is something to, like, having those rituals. And so I think when you're used to working at home and then training at a gym, and you go working at home and then training at home, it maybe doesn't have, it was hard for me to flip that switch.
I can have some anecdotal support for that, because it just happened today. Sometimes my clients will, like my online coaching clients, will come to my gym and we're trained together. And I ended up failing on a rep where I was like, I would not normally fail on that rep. I just hack squat, just didn't get it up. I was like, man. And the session took twice as long, of course. I'm just like, man, I like, it's great training with people, but at the same time, when I'm so used to training solo, it throws in that micro stress, like you said, and it just through the session. So I totally see that. You mentioned you obviously keep up to date with the research and everything at the moment. I'm pretty sure you had a video on the new meta-analysis, or what was it called, meta-regression, from Zach Robinson and the et al. And I just would love to hear if that changed any of your perspectives surrounding kind of failure and reps in reserve and any of that.
Yeah, I would say it hasn't changed. I would say it's shifted me a little bit, right? So I think I still hold the same general idea. I think that what I would term effective reps has probably changed a little bit. So for those who don't know, this meta-analysis by Zach Robinson, he is a student of Michael Zordos, who, you know, Mike may not be a big name in fitness, but if you've ever done any kind of digging into evidence-based resistance training, Mike Zordos should be a big name for you, especially if you're interested in powerlifting. So Zach is actually my coach for powerlifting. So he does all my programming. And so when this meta-analysis came out, I saw all these opinions. I was just like, you know what? I'm just going to call Zach and get his opinion, you know, because what better person to get an opinion of their own data than the person who did it? Because, you know, you're very restricted in terms of, like, your opinions you can give in a scientific paper. But if I'm just spitballing with somebody, I'm like, you know, a lot of times I've done this with, like, you know, business coaches or attorneys. I'll say, okay, I understand you can have to give me very isolated advice for liability reasons. Now I'm going to ask you, if it was you, what would you do, right? And so I asked Zach, you know, here's what some people are saying. What's your role take, like, practically? And it's pretty much in line with what my take is, which is, the vast majority of people do not train hard enough. And you don't need to train to failure. And even his research shows you don't really need to train to failure, but you got to get pretty freaking close. And I can tell you that the discomfort of stopping 1 or 2 reps shy of failure versus actually going to true failure is not that much different. Okay. Like, I did an interview with Mike Israetel a while back, and because he was talking about training to RPE 8 or 9. And people were like, oh, you're not training hard enough, this and that. And Mike showing like videos of him like puking in the gym, And I think, for example, I did a set of squats. I think my best ever set of squats for high reps, I did 535 for 10 reps. Okay. When I got done with that, I was so fatigued and out of oxygen, I couldn't even rack the bar. Like the uprights were just a little bit like a half inch. It didn't matter. I could not fully lock out my erectors, and somebody had to actually run over and save me because I was not going to be able to rack this bar. And then once it got it racked, I collapsed on the ground and I did not move for about 20 minutes. Like it was that physiologically taxing, not just on my muscular system, but like mentally to like push myself that hard. And then just my lungs, like I just sat there and just heaved air for probably 10 minutes. And so I like what Mike said about that sort of set. He said, so you're telling me if I stop 1 or 2 reps shy of that it's easy? Like, no. And I think this is what a lot of people don't understand. That set, the first rep was hard. Like the first rep was not easy. Okay. The first rep was hard. The second, I actually posted a video of, I think my best deadlift set I ever did was like 635 for like 8 or 9 reps on deadlift years ago. And I'm like, watch this set. When do you think I'm going to fail? And, most people would comment, oh, I thought like on rep 5 or 6, you were done. And then I did, 2 or 3 more. And then when you, even the one before the last rep, it looks like that's it. I'm like, most people just have no idea how hard they really can push. They really don't know, which is why, like when we look at research where people are asked to estimate their RPE and then are pushed to absolute failure by the researchers, and we're talking like they turn the music up, they're yelling and screaming at them, encouraging them. People underestimate their reps to failure by about 5, right? So if they're in a set and they say, how close to failure are you? And they say 2 reps. If they push them, they get 7 more, So most people think about failure as discomfort, like really strong discomfort, when in reality, true failure is way different. And so I think Zach's research just supports that, which is you have to learn how to push yourself if you really want to get, the most muscle mass you can possibly get. Now, the research on strength was actually quite interesting. The research on strength did not show the same thing. So the research on strength showed that it's not only does training to failure not seem to matter that much, what actually seems to matter is creating as much force on each rep as you possibly can. And when I say force, if you think about the strength velocity curve, what that means is at a light load, I am moving it as fast as humanly possible. And so one of the things that we do in we don't do in our programming, Zach does in his programming, is whatever load is being selected, if it's not a top set, and by top set, I mean like RPE, like you're getting into the RPE 5 and up, okay? If it's not one of those, or let's say RPE 7 and up, he's selecting the weight and then is going to select the reps to keep it under RPE 6 or 7 for back off sets. Because if you think about, like, let's say I could do 475 for 8 reps, right? By the 8th rep, it's moving pretty slow. My force production is low due to fatigue. Instead of doing like, say, 2 sets of 8 or 3 sets of 8, you're probably better off doing like 6 sets of 4 with the same load, because you can keep the RPE low, the speed high, and you can keep the force high. So, and again, like people will get too dichotomous with this. They'll go, oh, well, I'm not going to grow muscle if I'm doing that. No, you still grow muscle. Like that's not what this research is saying. What it's saying is if you want to grow the most muscle possible, you probably need to take sets to close to failure or failure, okay? If you want to be the strongest possible human, then it's more about generating as much force as possible. But there is considerable overlap between those two, okay? We're talking about the last 5 to 10% minutia details. So my practical take home for people is whether you're a powerlifter or whether you're into powerlifting, strength gain, or hypertrophy, if you're not making progress and you're, let's say you haven't been doing this 10 years or whatever, because at a certain point, progress just becomes very incremental. If you're not making progress, it's much more likely that you're either not training hard enough, and if you're training hard enough, it's probably because you're not appropriately recovering in terms of sleep, proper nutrition, and management of stress, and management of total volume over a period of time.
Do you not see the progress you would like? Are you sick of writing your own programs? Or perhaps you need some accountability in order to stick with a plan? Then it's time to start working with us. We at Revive Stronger offer a truly personalized coaching service. You'll get more than just an email with some macros or random cookie cutter program. With Revive Stronger, you will be the center of our attention. You will receive your own fully individualized training protocol alongside a customized nutritional strategy. We created the coaching around your needs, wants, personal preferences, and your own unique lifestyle. Every single week, we delve into your program in order to make appropriate adjustments so that we get the most out of your time and the best possible outcome. We help both female and male athletes to seriously change their body composition by adding more muscle mass and decreasing fat tissue. No matter if you're a competitive bodybuilder or just want to look better, if you need help with your progress and taking your physique to the next level, our coaching is for you. It's time to make a change. Sign up today and let's revive stronger.
I think that was a great summary. You probably won't have known. I had Zach on, I don't know how long ago now. And like to get him on, and that's kind of been my approach recently, is trying to get the researchers on, because like otherwise, like you said, people can have opinions on it, but it gets a little bit challenging because I don't know how much bias comes in there. Whereas he's actually ran the study and he kind of knows it inside out. He knows like the meta-aggression, how they did the kind of statistical analysis, which I think some people have some critiques about and things. So, but I like your take, and because it kind of, again, I kind of took my take, I guess, from Zach too, where it's just like, it kind of shifted me a little bit, edging where I was maybe thinking, 3-4 isn't too different from like 2-1-0. It's like I actually shift all that one a little bit further, so I'm getting that much closer. And yeah, the research on kind of people's ability to approximate RARs is super interesting, because like there are some where people are way off, and then there's some where it shows that they're actually pretty reasonable at it. Maybe they're off. I think there was a meta-analysis that showed they're off by like 1 repetition on average. And it's kind of like how they set that up often plays into it too, which I think you have always done a great job of, is like, hey, you got to read how they've done the methods in a paper, because you can't just read the outcome, because they could have set the paper up in a way that's just going to lead to certain results.
Well, I always say, like, people will say, well, this was a bad study. This was bad. Very rarely will you hear me say it's a bad study. What I'll say is, I might say, I don't agree with the author's conclusions based on the methods they used and the way the study was conducted and their results. I don't agree with their takeaway, but data is just data. Like, there's no reason to get like pissed off about it, and I think that's where you can really see. So obviously people are like, well, Layne, you get pissed off all the time, but that is around the claims that are made based on some of these studies. And the other thing I get a lot too is people will say, well, I don't, when stuff doesn't support what they want it to support, they go, well, then they just try to dismiss everything outright. Well, all these studies are bought and paid for, and I don't trust science because, one study says one thing and one study says another thing. And it's almost without fail, anytime I've seen a study that where I go, that doesn't fit in terms of what people are telling me the study said, or when I read the conclusions, if I actually go in and I look at what subjects they used, how they randomized them, how they set up the study, what they found, their actual results, not just their discussion and conclusions, the actual results, 99% of the time, I'm like, of course they found that. Like, it makes sense as to why they found what they found. Unfortunately, people's hot takes in social media, are what gets the sound bites. And people unfortunately don't look up references to actually see it. And most people honestly don't have the wherewithal to understand it anyway. And so, like, I remember, I'll never forget, hopefully I can name drop, but I've gone after Dave Asprey a few times, and he never responds to me by name, which is very smart on his part, by the way, because it wouldn't go well for him. But he had a video where I think he was kind of trying to respond to like some of the things I'd said because I'd been critical of his comments about aspartame, and he made the mistake of citing a study and actually giving the PubMed ID. See, most of these guys don't just say there was a study and they did this, and then there's no way to look it up, so you can't disprove it. But he actually gave the PubMed ID and said, these subjects gained more body fat and it ruined their gut microbiome. And I'm like, I am going to bet dollars to donuts that is not what the study said. So I go look up the study, and of course it was in rodents, it wasn't in people. And then they actually found that the rodents that got aspartame lost more body fat than the rodents that didn't. They did see some alterations to the gut microbiota, but again, as I've talked about many times, we don't know enough about the gut microbiota to understand if these changes are good, neutral, or bad. In fact, in some of these studies, in one of the studies on sucralose, they found an increase in the population of bacteria that produce butyrate. Well, butyrate actually has quite a bit of data behind it, suggesting it improves insulin sensitivity and metabolic markers of health. So I'm like, okay, like, there's actually just as likely of a chance that it could be good alterations to the gut microbiome. So I just think, I'm kind of one of these people like, hey, let's like sit back and let's, but before we make big claims about stuff, let's see what happens. I think when I was younger, when I was a young biochemist, because that's what my bachelor's was in, I would get really excited about mechanistic data and single studies. And just over the course of several decades of seeing 99% of that stuff never work out, and I just kind of like, when these studies come out, I go, I will wake me up when there's 10, and it's in humans and whatnot. And this is a guy who did most of his research in animals. I understand the benefits of animal research, but you can't just make claims around animal research. It has to be, validated in humans, and that's so.
It's so scary that, like, again, he literally stated an opinion, like his interpretation of a study that, I don't know, he didn't even read the study, or I don't even know what happened, but how many people are going and finding that study like you did?
Right. Well, the same thing with like, Paul Saladino talking about oatmeal and the phytates in oatmeal. Like, first off, phytates are almost, drastically degraded by cooking. So if you're cooking your oats, not a big deal. And oh, by the way, let's just go look at the human outcome data of what happens when people eat more oatmeal. Because if this stuff is really as bad as he's saying, we should be able to pick it up in the human outcome data. And what do we see? People eat more oatmeal, have better markers of metabolic health, lower risk of cardiovascular disease, lower risk of cancer. So maybe these phytates are having a negative effect, but it's more than compensated by the positive components of oatmeal, obviously. And so I think that's what people miss, is you have to understand that a mechanism, there are, like, when you talk about a human outcome, say loss of body fat, cardiovascular disease, pick your outcome. That is the summation of thousands of different pathways and mechanisms coming together. And so, sure, you can point out this one pathway or mechanism that may have a negative impact, but what if that same food has 900 positive impacts, right? Like, so that's why it's so important to, yes, we should understand mechanisms, but we should really focus on the outcomes. And I think so many people get caught up in that. And that, it was a great, Mike Israel did a video the other day about seed oils, which is now the popular thing. And he talked about, hey, here's this human outcome data showing this. And then first comment, of course, but Mike, what about oxidation? And it's like, okay, first off, there really isn't good evidence that in humans, if the seed oils aren't rancid, that they cause oxidation, like in humans. But let's say it did. Let's say it did compared to like saturated fat or whatnot. Okay, well then, if it's really that bad, we should pick it up in the disease incidence. But what we see is they're either neutral or positive when it comes to cardiovascular disease, cancer, and those sorts of things. So again, it's like, all right, there could be this mechanism that exists, but obviously it's not powerful enough to wash out the positive benefits that they're getting from those things. So, I mean, it's just so easy. And what's funny is it's always these like low carb or carnivore people who are pointing out the evils of seed oil. I guess enough evidence, they couldn't get enough evidence against sugar. And so now it's moved to seed oils. And what's funny is it's like, do you know how many components of meat that I could pick out and that have mechanistic data to show that they are horrible for human health? You know, like heterocyclic amines, polyaromatic hydrocarbons, heme iron, TMAO, like all those have actually probably stronger mechanistic data to support their negative health effects. But that shouldn't matter. What should matter is like, hey, do we actually see this in human outcome data? And most people, you know, they get focused on the wrong things, I think, because it's sexier.
Yeah, I think I was going to ask you why, like, I can't understand why these people, once they've been educated by someone like yourself or like Mike and they've been corrected, I don't understand why they wouldn't change their view. And I don't know, like, you know why?
Because it becomes an identity. Because people get, so what we've actually seen is, I have atheist friends who will say that humanity is getting smarter. And I've said, no, they're just shifting to something else. So as faith and religion has declined, what you are seeing is that people are looking for that tribalism somewhere else. And so they are picking up other things. Now, it's not always just nutrition. People have identities about all kinds of stuff. I mean, look at politics. My gosh. Like, I think you're better off arguing about religion than you are about politics. People get way more nasty about politics. And then the same thing with nutrition. I think that most people, unfortunately, are so insecure about their own beliefs that they want to bring other people into their way of thinking because it will help justify that what they're doing is the best thing. And I know, like, you know, my example of this is like when I first like found flexible dieting, it was like, wow, you know, this is amazing. Like, I'm so consistent with my nutrition, I'm getting such great results. But I never said, hey, this boosts metabolism by 50%. Or I never, you know, it would be like, okay, this thing worked for me because I got more adherent. I don't feel the need to convince you to do it. I'm always gonna, you know, like people thought I was kind of like telling people they should be flexible dieting. No, I'm not saying you should be doing that. But if you make ridiculous claims about it, I'm going to debunk those claims. And so people are so black and white with their thinking, they can't disconnect the two. But I never felt the need to go prove that what I was doing was better than what everybody else was doing. It worked for me. Why do I care if somebody else wants to do something different? I don't care if you want to do low carb. I don't even care if you want to do carnivore. But don't tell me the sky is red when the sky is blue. Like, don't tell me that carnivore is the optimal diet for human health, because it's not, okay? And so I think that, you know, people have said, well, how do you, well, I've lost 50 pounds and I feel great. Whew, good for you. I've no problems with that. But don't tell me fiber is bad for you. Don't tell me vegetables are bad for you. They give you a little tummy ache, okay, poor thing, but like, that doesn't mean they're bad for you. And so I just think that, you know, people get so entrenched in these positions. And a classic study on this was in politics, and I think it was around 2009. They took Democrats and Republicans, so right wing and left wing. I think the political conservative versus non-conservative, right, versus progressive. Because I know over in the UK it's a little bit different. Like in Australia too, like the liberals are actually the conservatives, and it's flipped.
Gets confusing.
So, yeah. So, but they showed data to each people from each political party that would either directly refute, or support a previous position that they held. And they found that it didn't matter what they showed them. Both things were equally as effective at reinforcing the person's beliefs. So what I always say is, like, I think the majority of people believe what they want to believe. And I'm just trying to reach those independents out there who have an actual brain in their head, who are willing to think for themselves. But I will say I have had some people who have reached out to me over the years and said, man, I used to be hardcore low carb. I used to be hardcore carnivore. I used to be hardcore vegan, pick your kind of nutritional tribalism. And I used to hate you. And then over time, your logic was too undeniable. And I'm like, see, there were a few brain cells left in there that were allowed to populate and, grow and progress.
I think you hit the nail on the head. I see it regularly. Like, just as a pure example, there'd be a podcast coming out of Mike, and he was posting about his recent competition, how he didn't do as well as he would like, and then people started giving him feedback. And it's always the feedback of just like they want him to join their like camp. They're like, stop training with such good technique. Stop leaving any reps in reserve. You got to train hardcore. You're having too many processed foods in your diet. That's what's causing you wrong. And it's like, I think you're right in terms of the where they're coming from. They're not trying to help Mike here, really. They're just hoping he joins their tribe because then they feel stronger and more secure in their beliefs.
Well, I love Mike. Like, I haven't spent much time with him, but we agree on many things. And I think he's hilarious too. But like, he does not have the best physique for bodybuilding. Like, he's built kind of like a fridge. He's just not that aesthetic. He's done amazing with what he has. Okay. But like him, like, he just needs more time under tension and to get, a little bit leaner and smooth out some of these areas that are weaknesses for him. And that will come with time. But is he ever going to be on an Olympia stage? Probably not, but he's still done amazing for what he had genetically. Like, and I think like, it's like this internet. If you can't be world champion, it's a waste of your time. I mean, I can't tell you how many people I'm just like, guys, if we're only doing things that we can be the best in the world at, like, can you make that a goal? Sure, that's fine. I'm all for it. I'm here for it. I've had that goal, and I've been that, But I do powerlifting because it's fun. Like, I do it because it's fun. If you told me I could never get stronger or never get another ounce of muscle, I would still do it because I have fun with it, And there's just it's this weird culture of all or nothing. If you can't win the Olympia, what's the point? You're wasting your time, It's like boxers when they lose one match, oh, he's a bum. And it's like, no, he's not. Or people like watching an American football game and saying this guy sucks. I'm like, do you realize that guy who sucks, who's a starter, by the way, in the NFL, was a stud on his college team? So he's like in the top 0.1% of college athletes, which, by the way, to get into college and to get a scholarship and to be a stud in college, he had to be in the 0.1% of high school student athletes. And to be the starting, quarterback on his high school team, he had to be in the top 1%. Like, do you realize like how small this population of people is? Like, yeah, when you're watching him on TV against other 0.0001% of the population, okay, he looks like he sucks. But he would rule. I was watching an interview with Bradley Martin and Brendan Schaub the other day, and I like Brad and I like Brendan. But Brad said that he thought he could take any 125-pound fighter in the world. And I'm just like, oh, no. Like, no, Brad, no. You, yes, all things being equal, size matters. this person literally does this for a living. This is like saying, okay, Brad, you're big and strong. Let's put you up against the best, like lighter class. Let's put you up against Taylor Atwood in a powerlifting meet. Taylor Atwood would destroy you in a powerlifting meet, right? So, I realize I've kind of jumped around here, but I think people don't really get a great appreciation for people at the top of what they do, just how freaking good they are and how ridiculously hard it is to get there. And so when they see people like Mike getting 5th at nationals, which by the way is really good, because even Masters Nationals of the NPC is very competitive. They go, oh, well, if you just change these things, like he hasn't thought of that, like he hasn't left other things. Like, come on, guys.
Yeah. No, I think that's super well said. And whenever I think about like people only like, they're like, oh, why'd you bother with bodybuilding when you're not like a pro after 10 years or whatever? I'm like, if I had that attitude to everything in life, I'd just like not do anything. Like I'm never going to be the best.
You're not Joe Rogan, better quit your podcast, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And I always like the idea of actually like when you do most things for longer than the average would do them, you end up becoming better than average. So like the podcast or like bodybuilding, for example. So, and I think you said it right in terms of like, you enjoy the journey. Like if you weren't world champion or you hadn't made the record lifts you'd made, you'd still be trying to do that. You'd still be aiming for that. You'd still be going.
So that's called trusting the process, enjoying the process. And by the way, if you want to be the best, you better do that anyway.
Yeah. And actually, on the note of bodybuilding, this is a question I had for you. You probably get it all the time. Is there any chance you're looking to go back to that? Is there any like masters competitions for you in your future? I actually don't know how old you are, Layne, so I apologize if I've aged
41.
you.
I'm 41.
Just about there.
Yeah, it's hard to believe it's been 13 years. Definitely nothing on the horizon, nothing planned. I would stop short of saying I'm completely retired and will never do it again. I can't foresee a situation in me competing anytime in the next few years, especially with little kids. But I never want to rule anything out, you know. Maybe I'll get the itch again, be tired of powerlifting.
Do you still have, when you diet down, do you get ever the itch? Do you like hit some bodybuilding shots? You're like, I've still got it.
Sure. Like me and Jeff Nipper did a video up in Canada.
Oh yeah.
And we took some posing shots and I was like, oh, Jeff's going to make me look stupid. And then we looked at him like, oh, dang, I still got it, you know? So yeah, I definitely have had those moments.
And do you incorporate with your routines that you do with Zach? I guess at the moment, because you're competing, they're very specific towards powerlifting. But when you're out of kind of competition prep, do you incorporate a lot of the bodybuilding work still back in there for yourself?
Oh yeah, yeah. And I do like quite a bit of accessory work that's, you know, higher rep range, you know, 8 to 15 reps, that sort of thing, with, you know, more like machine compound movements or isolation movements, you know, still building base level of strength and hypertrophy. Because if you have more hypertrophy, it increases the governor on your strength that you can build and vice versa. So yeah, we still do some of that stuff. Very
cool. Layne, thank you so much for your time. It's been amazing chatting to you and catching up. I'll have to get you back on at least in the next 2 years. I'm excited to see, maybe you'll have competed in bodybuilding at that point, then I'm definitely bringing you back on. But thank you for your time as always. And I know you said you've got a few things that you're running at the moment. What do you want to let the audience know about? I know the Physique Academy is one of them particular that I think the audience will be interested in.
Like that's probably the biggest thing that I'm really excited about is the Physique Coaching Academy with myself and Professor Bill Campbell. Bill's phenomenal. And we basically, I tried to think about if somebody wanted to get a college level or university level education in coaching people, what could we build to do that? And so, you know, like there's personal training certifications out there, there's nutrition certifications out there. There's not really much that like brings those two together, with also like supplementation, aerobic exercise, anything to modify body composition. So we exclusively focused on that. We said, okay, we're going to give you a university level education in everything you need to know with this stuff and nothing you don't, right? So like we don't go into like specifics of like, hey, vitamin C does this, and you know, this is the RDA and all that. We don't do that, you know. But if you want to learn how to get people stronger, build more muscle, lose more body fat, we can teach you how to be some of the best at that and be an authority at that. And so, yeah, it's an 8-month mentorship program. You have to have some sort of prerequisite, whether it's we show the ones that you can take on our site. But you either got to have a certification in personal training, have some sort of college degree in a relevant field, or have taken one of the prereq courses. So we don't just take anybody, but it's 8 months mentorship. We also do weekly calls with our students. And the feedback on it so far has been phenomenal. Like our textbook is over 600 pages. We have, video lectures. It's a lot of like diversified learning. So the feedback so far has been amazing, and we're super excited about it.
Yeah, it sounds, for a lot of the listeners, ideal, I think, because I think a lot of coaches, especially like physique competitors or coaches of that type or ilk, people who want to get into online coaching, like you said, there's not, like you can do, I don't know, they might go and do degrees, and it's like, how specific is this to the job I eventually want? There's probably people listening that literally want to be like an online coach or like a one-on-one PT with physique competitors, so it sounds ideal.
If you want to be an online coach, this is the course for you.
Amazing. Layne, I'll make sure I have the link to that and all your socials, of course. And guys, thank you for listening. We'll catch you soon.
Thanks, Steve. Appreciate it, man.
Losing weight fast while maintaining muscle mass. Sounds too good to be true, doesn't it? It isn't though. It's reality, and we know how to do it, and we will help you achieve this. The Minicut movement is an 8-week fat loss program to make you lose a huge chunk of fat while maintaining muscle mass at the same time. We will support you from the beginning to the end so that you see the results you would like to and come out of it much stronger. You'll receive a fully automated spreadsheet that is based on your nutritional needs. You can choose between 6 different male and female training templates. Over 30 videos will guide you through each and every single step of the Minicut so that you're getting the most out of your journey and that you always know what to do. But the best thing is that you can start whenever you want. The Minicut movement is open 24/7. So if you want to learn more or you're ready to sign up, hit the link in the description below. So let's revive stronger together.